Well, here we are Tuesday, and we're continuing our look at the Psalms of the Ascent. We're going to look at two Psalms today, Psalm 127 and 128. 127. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labour in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponents in court. Psalm 128. Blessed are all those who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him. You will eat the fruit of your labour. Blessings and prosperity will be yours. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. Yes, this will be the blessing for the man who fears the Lord. May the Lord bless you from Zion. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. And may you live to see your children's children. Peace be on Israel. These two psalms can be read together, and they remind us that God is interested in the daily aspects of our life. God longs to be involved in our lives in all areas. God longs to shape, to guide, and to bless us in daily life. I wonder if the psalmists, as they make their way up through the hills, the mountains towards Jerusalem, whether they are able to have time to take stock of their lives, to reflect back on their lives, to think about how God is or isn't involved in their daily lives. Well, over the last few weeks I've had numerous conversations with people. Of course, all of them have been correct social distance conversations, but numerous conversations with people about this time that we're in and how the enforced change of life for all of us has given many of us a chance to reevaluate, to take stock of our lives, of our activities. Life has changed, at least temporarily, for most of us, if not all of us, in some way. And whether we're busy or bored, whether we're isolated or out facing the risks of life, most of us, perhaps many of us, have had a chance to stop and pause as we experience the new way of life and to reevaluate. There are two stories in Genesis, the beginning of our scriptures, that talk about activity and productivity. The first story is, of course, in Genesis 1. It's the account of God creating the heavens and the earth. A beautiful picture of God, Father, Son and Spirit spending 6 days of fruitful, ordered, careful, harmonious activity. Activity that's full of unity and purpose, creating a world designed to bless. And each day of creativity, there being space to pause and look back. It is good, declares God. And of course, that seventh day of rest, recovery, enjoyment, Sabbath. And it's a model for us of how we should be involved in creative activity, how we should be working with others to build something good, how we should build into our lives space for reflection on what we've done, and of course space for Sabbath rest and recovery. The other picture in Genesis is a picture of humankind striving with their own agenda, striving in their own strength. Genesis 11, the account of the Tower of Babel. Human beings say, "Come, let's build a city. Let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves." This account is of humankind striving to create something for their own end, their own purposes, their own egos. The result of this striving is disharmony. It's a clash with creation's purposes. It results in confusion and chaos. These two psalms, well, maybe within them there's a challenge for us on our attitudes. A challenge about our creative endeavour, how we are working with others. Are we following the Genesis 1 pattern God's way? The psalmist says, unless the Lord builds the house, unless the Lord watches over the city, that we must walk in obedience with God. Or are we striving in our own strength, for our own purposes and our own ego? Are we spending our time and our efforts in step with God's harmonious shalom desires for our lives, or are we going it alone, striving to build our own empires, our own goals, our own kingdoms? The psalmist, of course, is speaking from within a Middle Eastern culture from thousands of years ago. That society was very much built around the forming of family groups. And a sign of God's blessing was a large family producing many sons. Not only a sign of God's blessing, but also, in reality, resulted in better economic security. Most of life's effort and activity would have been focused on providing and building or sustaining a family group. So a sign that this was working was, of course, having many children in your family and living long enough to see grandchildren. Well, we live in a different age and society, but the same challenge rings out from these Psalms for us today. Comes down the centuries to us today, whether we have paid employment or whether we're engaged in voluntary work or whether we're caring for one another, whatever we spend our effort and our time and our money and our cooperation with others in, well, we need to be walking in step with God, working with him, looking for his purposes, building his kingdom. And like the pilgrim brings their everyday hopes and dreams with them up through the hills to Jerusalem and to the temple, well, today, let us bring our everyday hopes, our everyday dreams to God. And let us see and give thanks for God's abundant blessings. And let's pause and reflect on how we're doing this. Let's invite God in. Let's reimagine what we're doing. Let's ensure we're building and working for God's kingdom. May God bless us.